Twitter and Elon Musk. This is what everybody wants to talk about. Elon Musk, he's been on he's doing Elon. Elon's being Elon. He wrote a letter, I think it was to the CEO, saying that he wanted to buy the company. I think it was for $43 billion. Yeah. I think that's like $54 a share, something like that.
Yeah, it was at 54.
He gave a whole explanation of why it made sense. He was like, it's 30% more than when he purchased the original shares at. He's been a holder of Twitter stock for a while. He feels that Twitter is the platform of freedom of speech, but he needs to have full control over it. So he offered a buyout to take the company private.
Yeah.
But he wants 100% control of the situation. They have not responded. Have they responded yet?
Yeah, they responded.
What they say? They're not interested.
Just
not interested.
No bueno. Yeah. Well, first in January of this year, he bought 9% of the shares, and so that was the first move. So he put the shares in place first. And now he's the largest stakeholder. Ian?
Yeah,
I know Vanguard as a entity had like 11%, but him as a single person, he had 9% of the shares. Mm-hmm. And so that was the first thing. Now he's the largest shareholder. And then he came in with like, yo, this is run so poorly. I need to take full control of his $43 billion. They were like, wait, that's not even enough. But also, no. But then Twitter stock is up $3 today. Yeah. It's up in the after hour. So a lot of people think like he did it to kind of start the bidding war and to like, he is still a stockholder, right? Mm-hmm. He does a lot of things that has like borderline. Yeah, but
SEC
no borderline. If some of the stuff he does to put his thumb in the face of the SEC. Ultimately, Elon's incredibly intelligent. I think this is not about a battle of freedom of speech. It is about Elon gaining control of a platform so he can be one of the most important political figures in our country. I know some people over the weekend were saying he is going to try to push to make an amendment so he can run for president. I highly doubt that will ever happen. But if he does have a platform the same way that Bezos does with Washington Post, after you accumulate a certain amount of money, number one, you do need a media platform in which you can control or at least fight back against certain attacks. So that's first thing first. Second, Twitter is a poorly run company. So if you held it for a 10-year period, you almost are flat. He made a good offer, but I think he should have forced the board's hand and really pushed to offer $81 a share, which has been like uptick above the all-time high. Now the board wouldn't be able to fight that offer. I put over on Twitter, I think Friday, you're going to see the real power players step up. We talked about this when we was in Mexico, and then the royal family in Saudi Arabia stepped up and said, hey, it's not enough money for you to be able to offer this price for Twitter. So there's a couple of things that I think, a couple of mistakes people are making. I think the media has gotten so soft. We see it with CNN Plus. They only have, I think, 10,000 active subscribers. I think they spend $150 million on that platform. I think media has gotten so boring and so sensitive that you do need a platform in which you're able to speak freely, but we have to be very careful on who controls those platforms and who will be able to take advantage of them. But the biggest issue here is Twitter is a subpar tech company. I've never heard, like, this is the most viral, non-important story I've ever heard. Like, no one cares about Twitter except for the few people that are on it. But I want you guys to go dig deep. What is the purpose of Twitter as a tech company currently?
Well, you also have to look at Twitter as not so the social media. It's called social media for a reason. I don't think people even fully understand social media, because even when I said it, I'm like, this is, in my opinion, this would be a play to make him one of the most powerful men in media.
Absolutely.
And it's like, they're like, media, like Twitter's not a media company. I'm like, well, what is it? It's a media company.
Of course.
And it's like, when you look at social media is dictating media. Stories are being created on social media. This is the whole Russia thing, what happened to Facebook. Stories are actually literally being created on social media. And if they're not created on social media, they're going viral on social media. They're amplified on social media. So when you look at social media, Facebook is out of play, obviously. Mark Zuckerberg, it's not, you can't buy Facebook.
Yeah.
TikTok situation that passed. If you wanted in on that opportunity is gone. And then it's like, what else do you have? Snapchat, not really something that, is real. I don't really see Snapchat as a major player in the years to come. Twitter is actually a place where people get news from.
Yeah.
It's where respected journalists and people actually go. So this is one of the few opportunities. Microsoft owns LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of the few opportunities to actually out there left.
Yeah.
So he's looking at, okay, if I can control Twitter, now I have a real, push in media, and overnight becomes one of the strongest players in media.
Yeah.
So now he's not only the world's richest man, he's one of the most powerful people in media.
Yeah.
Endless power.
And can control narratives whenever he wants.
I agree 1000% with what you're saying. When you think in terms of news, where do people get their news? Right? Like if I'm writing for the Washington Post, if I'm writing for the New York Daily News or the Journal, the Post, I can get it out faster by just putting my thoughts out on Twitter rather than sending it to an editor to say, can I get approved to put this out? And so most people don't even waste that time. If they get news, the first thing they do is put it right on Twitter. Even like we even see it in sports. Yeah. When Woj puts out a report, the first place he puts it is Twitter before it even goes to ESPN.com. He puts the news out and then he has to type up the entire article, send it to an editor, get it approved. And then like 5 to 20 minutes later, it'll be posted on ESPN.com. That's the same thing in any type of journalism. Whereas like Twitter is like, all right, I got a thought, boom, I'm putting it out, good or bad. The interesting part about that whole story was that the former founder of Twitter, he had something to say, right? So like, as they're doing this, he was like, look, the number one dysfunction of Twitter has been its board. And so that's when Elon was just like, look, this board doesn't even own a lot of shares of the company for them to have this much power. So they were going back and forth. And he was just like, think about that. Like the founder is watching his company being dragged on its own social media. And he's like, look, those people right there that sit at that table, they're the reason we're in dysfunction.
I mean, when you sit on a board and you're making $2.5 million a year or $3 million a year, it's really hard to have an incentive. Like I think the CEO that is there now is solid. I don't think he's the second coming to Tim Cook, but like when you have a salary like that, it's really hard to have a lot of change. And then like we're going through a pivotal point right now where the corporate structure is going to change. And a lot of games that used to be played will not be able to be upheld over these next 10 or 15 years. Ultimately, I think the 4 companies that should buy Twitter, because they're not going to let Elon do it. I think Robinhood should make a push to buy Twitter. Them or Crypto.com would be like the leading 2 companies. If I were behind them, I would push like hell to get Twitter, because now most people are getting financial information from Twitter. Now, if Robinhood acquires them and it's now integrated into their platform, now you have a different kind of moat, right? Of course, Apple's always in the running. I don't think they want a social media company, but they could be a good player. And then on the back end, Disney would be absolutely amazing. They're not going to let Elon take control of this company. But going back to my conspiracy theory bag real quick, do we want a non-born American to run one of the biggest social media platforms that is American-based in history? I am telling you, man, when this hits the fan, if this guy gets one of these platforms, whew, man, this sounds like a Bond movie.
My graduates from my school being Forbes. Bag drop.
Bag drop.
A mic drop. Bag drop.
Bag drop.